now. Before you heard the sound. Now. About this universe, because I'll tell you something, and maybe it sounds like a digression, but actually it is not. You see, this ineffable, unspeakable knowledge, self-knowledge, is not just self-knowledge about the non-phenomenal. You see, it is self-knowledge about the entirety of the manifest as well, and that is why you can surrender to it. I wonder, and maybe you have to all contemplate these
No,
words.
I think you should repeat that a little bit slow in a different
Yes.
way. I lost that. Yeah.
So we come to this discovery of that which is unspeakable and unseeable. Let's call it the ineffable. You see, the ineffable means that which is too broad to capture in words. You see, so that which is too big to capture in words. So you come into this discovery, you see, and this is what is traditionally called Atma Jnana, self-knowledge. Now, many of us in spirituality feel like we come to this self knowledge, but the self knowledge is only about the non phenomenal. You see? And I still need to augment it with some phenomenal knowledge to make it really function in the world. You see? But that is not true. This self knowledge is the superset of everything that your mind can grasp and hold on to. You see? It is on the basis of this self knowledge that the trees are growing and the flowers are blooming. You see? So, this self knowledge already knows everything, even in the manifest. In fact, it is not making a distinction between the manifest and the unmanifest. You see? And it is because it is the all knowing. That is why we can surrender to it. Why surrender to the Sadguru, the self, whatever term we may use for that? Because it is the all knowing and all pervasive and all powerful. No? So that is how surrender actually functions. You see? So your attempt to figure out whether it is worthwhile or not worthwhile is independent of your true self-knowledge anyway. So, so in your question, there are two answers possible, right? That one answer is that it's completely important and you need to understand it this way. The other answer, it is pointless. You see? Now, really what I want to say is that either of those positions, your true self-knowledge is independent of that. You see? But this kind of answer is not usually satisfactory to our intellect. So that continues to struggle and say, but he didn't really give me an answer. You see, it can seem like that. But what I'm really saying is that whether you end up with this conversation one way saying it is pointless to really understand in my intellect, or you end up with the understanding that I really need to understand this intellectually, either of those are independent of what your true self knowledge is.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I'm getting that, but yeah, I think I'll sink in a little on that.
Yeah,
It's
maybe
not
we
that very.
should make a transcript of this part because it can be to the mind it can just sound like blah 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 blah. What's happening?
Mm, it did
This is
actually.
what I've been referring. Maybe a simpler way to answer this is that the playground of the question and whatever response may come in that playground is not the playground in which your true self knowledge resides. So I call it playground because there is no point really to a playground. Maybe to the city planners, they must be thinking, oh, this has a point. But when a child goes to play, he's not going because there's a point to it.
Yeah, that made, yeah, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
the child goes to play, you ask your child, why do you want to go and play? The child is not going to say, oh, because my muscles will get stronger and these things will happen, it will benefit my body. You see? Just because I
Mm,
want to play.
mm,
That's why that Leela example is very good. What is the
mm.
point of a Leela? If the Leela had a point, then it would be called that point, not be called a Leela. You see, but my why I'm saying this again and again and may sound circular is because I don't want you to end up with the notion that it is pointless also, because call it pointless is to give it one more point. No, to call something meaningless is to define the meaning of something as meaningless. You see?
I get you that. Yeah. Mm.
So neither point nor pointless.
Mm.
You see? Or both, whatever you prefer.
So, so asking that question, I mean, so what should I do with that question? I mean, it's still there. So that's what actually clarified that the answer will not settle my question actually.
Yeah, exactly. It will not. It is not meant to.
Right.
But to, if there's an attempt here, it is to allow the intellect to continue to wobble
Mm.
instead of allowing it to rest on false knowledge. You see, to continue to wobble is the weakening of it. To give it, feed it false knowledge, even though it might sound spiritual, is to just construct a new prison for you.
Mm.
So there's a beautiful thing we came across the other day. No? In Western philosophy, you see, from the times of Plato and Aristotle, maybe Aristotle codified it in this way actually. He said that a claim can either be true or it can be false. These were the two corners of Western philosophy, Western logic. In India, both with the Buddhists and the Vedantins, there used to be four corners, you see, which was a claim can be true, it can be false, it can be both true or false, it can be neither true nor false. These were the four, and these four were enough to shake up most intellects, you see. But the Buddha, on many occasions, is referred to a fifth, and sages like the Nagarjuna have referred to a fifth. You see, now this fifth you cannot define in words because you define true, you define false, you define both true and false, you define neither true nor false. That fifth corner is where true self-knowledge lies. So if I say it has a point, it is in the corner of true. If I say it doesn't have a point, it is in the corner of the false. If I say it is both true and false, it is in the third corner. You see, if I say it is neither true nor false, it is the fourth corner. But the truth resides in the fifth corner, and
Which
our
is
intellect cannot go there.
it is indescribable because you cannot describe it at all.
Correct, correct. And the only way it is describable is in this way, in
Mm.
negation. You see?
Mm.
Like even to say it is undescribable is an attempted description of it, isn't it?
But that's the best description, I guess. No.
The only way to possibly come close to pointing to it, you see, is in the negative, which is this, unborn, undying, everything.
That's what we had that Neti Neti session. Yeah.
Exactly. See,
Thank you.
so your answer is in the fifth. Which is so far out from the typical Western way of thinking, which all of us, we might call it Western, but all of us have grown up in that, in the Western way of education and all of that, that we get confused between true and false. Just two corners we can't handle. The thing has to be either true or false for us to claim. No? And that is the limit of our intellect right now.
Yeah. So now I can explain why it's unsettled me because there is no relying point there.
Yes. You don't know which corner I'm talking about. On one
Yeah.
hand I'm saying it's true, on one hand I'm saying it's false. You see, and sometimes I say it's both, sometimes I say it's neither. But these are the four corners of just the intellect. I wanted your intellect to wobble enough so that it falls into the fifth. You see.
I see that.
That is the whole game of spirituality. That is the transcendence of the mind. You see.